welcome to the Lab Rat Foiler podcast. My name is Dan, and today we have Felipe Rezende. Felipe is the founder of Flow Paragliders and now also the founder of Flow Kiteboarding and the designer of the Flow D-Wing. Felipe, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I've been dying to get a designer in here to talk about Parawing design. How did everything happen? And how did you guys come up with such a good product? So before we get into all of those things, we really like to talk about your history and understand a little bit about your history in sports. And obviously paragliding is a big part of your life. So Tell us a little bit about you and how did you end up creating Flow Paragliders?
All right. Yeah, it was a fun journey. I grew up in a very windy place on the coast. So I've been involved in windy sports since my early age. I was really into windsurfing and surfing. And I was a little bit late to join the kite surfing crew. I think I had a really amazing group of friends that we all kind of windsurfed together. They switched to kite surfing and I kind of stayed windsurfing for a little longer. I don't know why. Probably at that time I had this amazing kit that I didn't want to wanted to get rid of it. So I kept it, and I kept it windsurfing, and I realized that I was windsurfing by myself while all my friends were kite surfing, as a group. So I I twist my arm and then went kite surfing, and I enjoyed kite surfing. It was cool. So that's kind of how I got involved with wind sports, and then from there my wife decided to learn to kite surf. But in kite surfing and windsurfing, I always liked to kite surf and windsurf in the waves, but to teach my wife to kite surf we had to go to flat water sports. So I decided then to make it interesting for me. I bought a foil kite, like a foil, to learn to kite foil. So that's how my journey into kite foiling started. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed kite surfing. So it was a cool thing, because while my wife was learning to kite surf, I was learning to kite foil.
Nice. How was that transition from kite surfing to kite foiling?
That was pretty smooth. Once I learned to kite foil, I never went back to kite surfing anymore. Only when the wind was really strong and the waves were big. And that's when I still do a little bit when the waves are big here, and there's good wind direction. I still go kite surfing with a surfboard.
Nice.
And just like the last 3 years, I think I switched from kite foiling to wing foiling. I think I am a very I have a very curious kind of mind. I like to experience different sports, and what I notice as well, like when I get into a sport, I really dive into a sport. I really want to explore what the sport wants to offer. If I look back, in my history with windsurfing, I used to kind of take part in competitions in both wave riding and also in racing. I really like the racing aspect of sports.
Nice.
I used to do first was like slalom back in the day. There was a lot of slalom racing, which was really cool, like really windy places. And then later, more technical, we got the Formula, the really wide boards. But I could only do for a couple of years because it was really expensive to get up with the the latest and greatest kind of gear. And then
and you're originally from Brazil.
So I'm originally from Brazil, the northeast coast of Brazil, a place called Natal, which is very windy all year round. So it's really good for kite surfing, windsurfing. And I moved to Australia 25 years ago after I finished uni.
Yeah, nice. What did you study in university?
Architecture. So I always had this which kind of ties up with the history of flow, I think. I always had this strong attraction to design. So I graduated as an architect. So all the things that I use, I make them or design them.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's the best way to do it, isn't it? I'll
Yeah,
just
that's
create
it.
one.
Yeah.
So how did paragliding get into your life? Was that back in Brazil where you started to paraglide?
That was back in Brazil as well. On the northeast coast of Brazil, it's a really good place to paraglide as well. Like it's really, if you want to fly big distances, if you want to break world records, that's where you go to.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but initially I started flying on the cliffs on the coast, and then progressed to the inland sites. So
And
the interaction I had with paragliding was initially with friends flying on the coast, and then with all these pros coming to my state to break world records, and it was really fascinating back then because I realized, wow, paragliders are very similar to surfers because I was a really keen surfer as well. So as a surfer, as a kite surfer, and as a paraglider, you see the forecast coming and you get super excited. Like, oh, the wind's coming or the big waves are coming. As a paraglider, you see like, wow, conditions are coming. It's going to be pumping. You're going to be able to fly 300, 400 kilometers and you get super excited.
yeah.
So we all have this connection with nature, right? Like all the sports, they are like connected to nature. They have elements to nature, either wind, water, all the waves. They all kind of I noticed that we are very similar. Doesn't matter what we do, but we all kind of interact with nature in similar ways.
Yeah. And you started paragliding. Well, you went out and you bought a paraglider. I assume you didn't build one.
Yeah. So I had some I like halfway through uni, I had I would call it sabbatical year where I took a year off. I went traveling. I went to live in San Diego for a year, and I was a really really keen surfer. And I used to surf at La Jolla, Black's Beach, which is a very famous paragliding site where a lot of paragliders fly on the cliffs there in La Jolla. And that's I got fascinated by those paragliders, and that's the first thing I did when I went back home was to learn to paraglide.
What was your first paraglider?
It was a really old called Airwave beginner glider that got it was really slow, and flying that in Brazil, like on the northeast coast of Natal, I got blown over the back, which is really dangerous, Yeah,
Some normal mistakes we all do.
yeah.
So then you were paragliding and doing water sports, and what led you to say, "All right, I want to build my own paraglider"? How did that happen?
Yeah. So before I actually built my first paraglider, I after I kind of finished uni, I realized that architecture wasn't for me. I was working in front of a computer, long hours. Most architects that I know, they're workaholics. They love what they do and they spend long hours in the office. And I couldn't wait to get out of that and do stuff in the water or in the ocean, or just out of the office. So I was making surfboards as a hobby. So I left. That was when I was living in Sydney. I set up a little workshop to make surfboards, and that's what I did for 8 years. I made surfboards. But then after all that time, it was fascinating because it was during the time where surfboards were transitioning from purely making surfboards, shaping boards by hand, to then designing them and getting a CNC machine to cut your boards. So I transferred all my designs to a computer. It was a time where there was a lot of change in the design, with Kaz Slater bringing his input to the industry, making shorter and wider boards. So it was part of that time. It was 8 years of it was fascinating. But then I had to stop because the resin fumes were really impacting my health. And I decided to stop. It was the hardest thing to do. And my neighbor, the guy who lived in the same street, at the northern beaches of Sydney, he used to design kites. His name was Chris, and he used to make the Griffin kites. And I was constantly helping him, tweaking and you know, developing new models and stuff. And I really wanted to do that. That was my next thing after surfboards. I started designing kites. So I designed kites, and that's when I created Flow Kiteboarding. And then we made a few kites, and we still make kites and we sell kites, but it's a very low key kind of business. In the same software that we use to make kites, we used to make paragliders. So then I was at that time, at the same time while this was happening, I was getting more and more involved with paragliding.
Yeah.
I was sponsored by a paragliding company. I was traveling the world, taking part in high-level paragliding competitions. So I was deeply involved, and I always had this, I always kind of find my way to interact with designers. So I was part of the R&D team of Flow Paragliders, where, we kind of designing high-end paragliders like the ones you take to go in competitions. So when I met this guy, so I knew this guy. I was in a competition, and this guy told me that he lost, this guy who owned the paragliding company said he's lost his designer. And he needed to come to Australia to learn how to use the software that we use to design kite surfing kites. And I said, look, I know how to use this software.
Amazing.
And I just want an opportunity to design paragliders. And that's when he kind of brought me on board, and that's how my paragliding journey started.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I think I worked for this guy for like 3 years for this company. And then I decided to kind of create my own company. There was some things that happened. The company ceased to exist. It was called Airwave. And then that's how Flow Paragliders started. We started really low key, but in the R&D kind of phase. But when we kind of made the first paraglider, we entered the market from the top up, making a high-end competition glider.
Cool.
And it was really successful. It was in a time where there was only one glider that was equivalent in the market, which was the Ozone Zeno. And we made one that was kind of equivalent, if not better. So instantly we got like dealers all around the world interested in buying our glider.
How did you
just like that, we got like, because what's interesting is like our paragliding competitions, they start in Australia in October, which is the end of the season, like in Europe, in the States. And then we have the season here, and the competitions here, and the kind of the world see what we are doing. And if you have a glider, we had a glider, in this case the XC Racer 1. You won all the competitions in Australia, and that's how
everybody said, okay, there's something there, and everybody wanted your...
Yeah, and then if you were a dealer and you didn't sell Ozone, you wanted to compete, you want to do well, you had no option to buy an Ozone glider. So we award the company that came with an alternative. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That's such a cool story, man. I am an industrial designer by trade as well, a very frustrated industrial designer because I never got to work in industrial design. I got into graphic design. So to see you follow your passion and say, this is what I want to do, this is the industry I want to be in, and it's very inspiring, man. I love that story.
That was like I condensed probably like 15 years of my life there, 20 years of my life. You know, it felt like it was gradual changes, but when I lay out like that, it's like crazy, but it was very gradual and a slow kind of steady progression from one area to another. And I think every kind of industry that I was part of helped with the other. You know, my design background, you know, and surfboards, and the transition from transferring the designs I had that I built by hand to the computer gave me a really good sense of how the changes can affect the design, how gradual the changes you have to do when you kind of in the prototyping process.
That's so cool that you mentioned that, because I think now everything is so digital that I think designers, they lose that touch of understanding what a centimeter here or there will do in practice. And you were in that transition phase where you experienced the tactile feeling and then the feeling when you're doing it to the computer. And that's, I think that would have helped you a lot.
I think it's more like the visualization that you kind of lose touch when you're doing everything in a computer. I try to visualize and have like an image in my mind what I wanted to design before I can actually get into the computer to design. Because having, like, when you're crafting something with your hands, you see it, right?
Yep.
It's 3D. It's like you can touch and can feel it, the texture to it. But when you're doing a computer, it's very digital. It's hard to visualize, even though most the design softwares you have today are 3D based.
Do you have any like airflow simulations in those softwares as well? Is that something that you can measure, or that's something that you just do in practice?
Yeah, the design software is all purely design softwares, but you can have plugins where you generate the 3D models to then run. The
airflow simulations.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
so you have to kind of interact with all the softwares. Yeah.
And then, so what is, like, you started your brand, and what does flow stand for? Is it just that state of flow that you're in when you're doing things, or is there a deeper meaning?
I think that's initially flow. We started with the surfboards. It makes a lot of sense, I think. But when kiteboarding came about after surfboards, I always called it Flow 3 because I like the flows. For us, it stands for the love of wind, water, and waves, like the W in cube. It's this state of flow, but it's also for the love of wind, water, and waves. That's what we do.
Nice. Well, everything that you've done in your life so far, and nice. I like that.
Yeah, and I think it's part of who I am. I'm very curious. I like to experiment. Some people, like, when they do one sport, they stick to one sport and they get good at it, and they create all their relationships around that sport. And that's what they do for the rest of their life, and that's fine, and that's amazing. But I'm very curious. I like to experiment and explore different activities. I'm always looking for something new. I don't know. I don't get bored to what I do, but I'm just curious, and I usually don't stop doing. I still have my I still have windsurfing gear here.
And do you still windsurf?
Sometimes I take my windsurfing gear because I love the feeling, It's not that I get bored or what's the next thing. I like to sometimes go back to the old kind of activities.
Yeah, look, and I resonate with this idea of experimentation, because this is what this podcast is all about, being a lab rat in the experiment of foiling. So try it all. Try winging, try kite foiling. I can't believe like more people don't kite foil. I love kite foiling.
Awesome.
Maybe because it was my first foiling discipline, but there's something about kite foiling that is just magical. So
to be able to go to places, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's because you do it. At least I do it when it's 10 to 15 knots, when it's a little bit lighter. Everything's quiet. And then you have a sense of just calmness, but then you can also jump and do these amazing things. So I just love it. So do it all is my motto. Absolutely. So from there, where did you get the idea of, all right, so I will now do a Parawing, and where did you see a Parawing? Like when were you first exposed to a Parawing?
So right now, my main activities, I'm completely hooked to foiling, right? This is, my main activity is paragliding, but it's my profession. That's what I do when I wake up from Monday to Friday. I run a paragliding company. And I find it important to have parallel activities to paragliding, so it's not only one thing. So my mind it's diverted from what I need to do, because I've designed, I like to keep it fresh. So when I go paragliding, it's always fresh and I'm always constantly excited. So foiling is my exit kind of when I get excitement away from paragliding. So I've been really keen for the last 3-4 years. I've been really keen prawn foiler, kite foiler, and recently a wing foiler. So I like prawning a lot. That's kind of my surfing background. I love prawning.
Yeah, prawning's sick.
And I think it was last winter, I was like blown away. I was fascinated by the Downwinding scene. And I was
You learn how to paddle and do all that
I was
stuff?
like, I want to do this. I wanted to learn to downwind, right?
How hard was that?
Because that's how we do it in paragliding. In paragliding, the wind's blowing in the mountain. You take off against the wind, you get high, and you go downwinding.
Yeah.
In the air.
Nice.
You fly 100 kilometers, you fly 300 kilometers, you know, and then usually you have someone that follows you, and you get you know, similar. It's a very similar concept to downwinding, but in the air, right?
Oh, cool.
So I bought a long downwind board at 8.4.
Yep.
Initially I bought that because I was looking at what Adam Bennett was doing. It's like, I don't need to learn to paddle. I can just
prone.
Prone.
Oh,
I bought the hand pedals, right?
So hard, man. Oh my
So
god.
I tried, and it was like, nah, I have a busy life. I run a company. We are very busy with the paragliding side of the business. I don't have the time to learn to the pedal ups. I just I do too many other things. I just didn't have the time, and I didn't want to dedicate the time. So I thought, like, I'll get this long downwind board. I'll get into downwinding without the pedal ups. Now, I was unsuccessful.
So hard. I think even Adam Bennett, I would love to talk to him about it, but I think the success rate is very low. You have to.
I think like there's some conditions, especially where he's from, between like Byron and Ballina. There's the stretch of the coast where you blow the nor'easters. The bumps are incredible.
Yeah,
you can do it there.
Conditions would have to be prime for that.
Yeah.
So you started your downwinding journey. Did you get to try the paddle as well, or did you?
I tried, and I just couldn't do it because I was never a sup foiler. A sup, so I couldn't sup. I never supped. You know, in the waves and stuff. So especially on the narrow 18 inches wide board, I just couldn't stand up on the thing. So it wasn't for me, and I kind of gave up until I saw the BRM Parawing. I was like, wow, that sounds interesting, you know.
Amazing.
And it's straight away. I kind of, after I saw it, I was like, wow, I can design something like that, you know, as well.
Is that where your mind went immediately? It's like
immediately. It's like, well, that's a solution for downwinding.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but I was busy and stuff, but I did open the computer and I started designing it because this is what I love to do. I love to design and create new products and stuff. But I never, and I played for, I can't remember how many days I played with the design in the computer. But until a friend of mine called me, or he shared something, he called it Double. He's a paraglider friend. He paraglides, but he also foils. And he says, "Oh, what do you think about this?" I think it was in the beginning, you know, like, I don't know, it was September, June.
Yeah, that's when they came out.
Year. I think that's when they kind of restarted the design process, because I was already designing, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, yeah, it looks amazing." It's like, "Yeah, if you make a prototype, I can help you testing." Nice. I was like, that's what I needed, right? So and then that's how kind of we started, and it was just so easy for us because the paragliders, the place where we make our paragliders, our paragliding factory, made it for us really quickly, really easily.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, coming from paragliders, you create, you know, enormous Parawings, essentially enormous, you know, they were like 100 bridles. Like, how easy was it to just say, oh yeah, 3-meter Parawing, easy? Or, you know, how hard was it to design that thing?
Yeah, so initially I thought, like, oh, this is gonna be easy. Sorry, this is gonna be easy. And I made a first prototype, and I trimmed the same way that I trim a kite, it didn't fly well. It was collapsing. It didn't fly well at all. So then I ordered a new bridle set, and I put a new lines into the existing canopy, and then it changed completely. I trimmed in the same way I trim a paraglider.
Interesting.
And it just straight away was flying really well, but you couldn't depower it. Every time you wanted to depower, it would collapse it.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to hold ground. It was hard to go, even to stay in the same, because it felt like, we get it overpowered too quickly, too soon.
Yeah.
With this thing. And that's when Double said, like, hey, there's kites, there's paragliders that you make that are uncollapsible. I mean, we call it uncollapsible, but they can be collapsed. We have this new technology of paragliders that are called the parakites.
The what? The parakites?
Yeah, they are
another thing now. What's a
another
parakite?
thing. Yeah, that's kind of similar terminology. But like paragliders that are coming from the foil kite kind of technology.
Yep.
They have a very solid leading edge, meaning that you can really change the angle of attack and almost hold the front lines, pull the front lines down, and the glider doesn't collapse. So you can fly those paragliders, same in a similar way as you can fly a hang glider. You can dive and you can swoop. And traditionally a paraglider, if you do that, it collapses. So then Double asked me, like, oh, can you do a Parawing that has that technology? Initially, my first reaction was like, I don't know if you can, because it's only a single surface.
Since the single skin.
Yes.
So those, I see. So the kites are double skin.
Yeah,
and
all
you
the
had to try.
most paragliders are double surface.
Excuse my paragliding ignorance here.
Yeah.
So transferring a double skin design to that single skin was the aim. That's what you were trying to do.
So he planted that seed, and and then that's when I sat in the computer with that kind of challenge, thinking, I think there's a chance that we can make a Parawing that you can actually depower it and then go upwind. And then I made a prototype and it worked straight away. So
amazing.
For most people, paragliding, Parawing, it might look simple, but there's a lot more than it fits the eye. There's a lot of technology there. There's a lot of R&D. There's a lot of try and error to get to that product that you can actually deploy, ride, and then depower and ride upwind with a solid leading edge.
And when you were testing this, the first iterations of it, were you testing in the water already or just on land?
No, in the water.
In the water.
Water. We have a little place here. There's a little bay, and we can test it. It's really good for testing. Any wind sports.
And how hard was it for you to learn how to just get up and get riding? Was it okay, or did it take you a little while?
Yeah, I think day one, because coming from winging. I think the kite surfing and winging. If you kite surf and you wing, you pick it up
100%
in 1 hour. Yeah. Or less.
And look, I think it's so cool to hear this story, because I'm talking to everyone that I can right now, and I'm understanding this evolution of the sport where it started with this pocket wing, which was almost there, and then Greg refined it to something very similar to what we all have now. Yeah. And that made it accessible with the one bar and everything working. And then I think what you brought to the table was this stability in the Parawing. Like I had the chance to start Parawinging with the BRM, and it absolutely blew my mind what it could do, and like you could get riding and everything. But then when I flew your D-Wing, I just didn't understand how well it flew. Like it just stayed there, and I didn't have to look at it. I didn't have to think about what I was doing on the bar. It was so intuitive to riding and flying. So I think you guys just knocked it out of the park with this V1, with making it really accessible easy, predictable, and like my evolution with the Flow D-Wing just went boom, it just went exponential when I started riding your stuff.
That was a really cool little project for us as well, because it was a revelation. I thought though about it, like, I don't know if we can do it. But once we received the first prototype and we went to the beach and you could depower, like first, like as the first question that you asked, first we do fly the thing on the sand, you know, before we get in the water, and we adjust some lines, adjust the brake lines. We do all the tweaking and adjustment on land. Once it's perfect, when it's flying the way we want it to do, and then we get in the water.
Nice.
Yeah.
That must be such a cool...
It was one of those moments. Like,
man,
it worked.
I can't even imagine that feeling of just creating something like that and just having your product do exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And just that excitement would have been just amazing to be around, man.
It was super exciting. Yeah.
Congrats for that, man. That's awesome. And like,
thank you.
Now, like, I'm imagining that every time that you get out there on the water and you're testing things, everything is getting better so fast, and I'm sure that there's something better that you guys are working on already. But like, how do you decide this is ready to go to the market and it's not perfect? I'm sure in your mind it's like, oh, we can still improve it so much more. But when do you make that call, like, this is what we're going to be launching, knowing that it's going to be obsolete very quickly? Like,
so once it's flying well and we iron out all the little imperfections and we receive like a pre-production sample from the factory that can be replicated, then we enter production. The timing was just perfect for us, because I think we started in September, October, and by November we had a product, and we were able to enter the market just before Christmas, which was for us, like when we released the Paragliders, we can never time it so well.
Serendipity, man.
Yeah, for us, it was just like, wow, the perfect storm. It was a really good thing for us. And the feedback we receive, it's incredible. It's really positive. People are really stoked, and we see a lot of people who used to wing just parawinging now. And what I can say, I think that this space, the future for parawing is bright. You know, especially now we have so many bright minds putting time, energy, thought into designing a product.
This summer will be crazy, man.
And I think this is just going to exponentially grow. You know, guys like you, just a dedicated podcast to Parawings, you know, of all the other companies designing Parawings. I think we all going to be designers, befitting off each other's
100%.
You know, inputs.
100%.
And it's one of those fascinating places to be. You know, it's like there's no other better place to be as a designer.
Yeah.
When you're kind of in the forefront of development and design, and there's constant evolution as a designer, that's where you wanted it to be. And you know, coming from this, like, I think to be a designer, you have to be really curious and be really open-minded to explore new concepts and ideas. And that's what we'll be doing. We have already some, we're not kind of, you know, sitting still and watching what the others are doing. We are actually trying to improve our design. We are working on new prototypes and see what if we can improve, see if we can improve the range, see if we can make it even more stable. You know, So we are exploring, because it's a minimalistic paraglider. If you compare to a paraglider, we are paragliders in the sense, in a way that paragliders is more cells. They are not more complicated. They're just harder to build. A Parawing is much quicker turnaround to build, so we can receive prototypes much quicker.
Nice.
So I think the R&D happens quicker.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to get a V2 soon. Give us a V2, Felipe. Give us a V2.
So I don't think we need a V2 right now. I think that the D-Wing is working really well, and we're keen to have it in the market until there's something better out there, because we feel that the D-wing does everything. You know, you can deploy it, you can ride it, you can mow the lawn if you want to, but if you wanna go upwind, do upwind downwind runs, you can do it. Yeah, you know, it's doing what was designed to do.
100%. It definitely is. Well, let's double click on that a little bit. What are the characteristics of the D-wing? I mean, when you talk about your product, what does the D-wing do very well?
I think I think what we like. I feel that what the D-wing does that some of the others don't do as well is to point upwind, and the ability to depower in a stable and controlled way.
Yeah.
You can point upwind. If you're overpowered, you can hold on that position, and the leading edge is solid. You don't have the craziness. It's just nice and stable.
Yeah.
And you can even connect to a harness line to your harness and stay in this position, very similar to when you're winging, when you're going upwind with wing. There's a little bit of a flutter because it's natural to a single surface canopy, a paraglider or a Parawing. They will have a little bit of flutter, but that's nice. It feels really nice. It feels really light, and the magic happens when you collapse it and have it on your hands.
Yeah,
collapse the thing, and then you go and ride the bumps.
Yeah,
and what I think the magic of Parawing, it gave us mortals that don't know to do the pedal ups to enter the helm of downwinding.
Oh, dude, it completely changed the way I downwind. Completely. Like I'm happy I learned how to paddle. I think it was a good learning experience, and I still enjoy doing it. But I would be on a downwind run paddling, and I would be riding at maybe 80% because I didn't want to fall. Like, I wanted to ace the run, and that was my mindset. And once you do that a few times, it's okay, but I don't chase times. I like to surf. Yeah. But I don't want to fall, because if I have to paddle up 10 times, I know that my 11th paddle up will be not that great. So, and then riding smaller foils, you always go out like, oh my God, am I going to be able to paddle up? And that completely disappeared when I started Parawinging, because I know that I will get up. If I don't get, like, if the wind doesn't die, I know I'm going to be able to get up. So I'm pushing turns so much harder now, and trying new things and wanting to actually fall. There was one day that I just did a turn and I fell on my butt. Like, I was wanting to see how sharp I could turn. Like, I would never just fall like that, with the paddle, because it might be that you don't get up again. I didn't get to the level where paddling up a small foil was easy, was always like challenging. So the Parawinging for me opened up just this ability to try more, push so much harder, and not care about failing and falling out there.
Yeah, because it's super easy to get up again on foil.
Yeah, once you know you can, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. Even like if you learn to downwind and you keep the Parawing kind of half inflated, going downwinding.
Yep.
Without completely deployed.
Yep. And you can do that and go a little bit on an angle to like get that power back.
It's still good fun. And if you downwind in a day where the bumps are minimal and you have to pump, constantly pump, and you're getting tired, and you can just deploy it, have a rest, rest your legs, catch a bit of breath.
Yep.
And just cruise for a little bit, and then do it again.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the one thing that kite foiling was really good for me at the start was the amount of time that you get on foil if you're out doing a session. So if you're out kite foiling, you're up for 90% of the session, you're actually on foil. But if you go prone foiling, you're foiling for like 20% of the time that you're out there catching waves.
That's
so
right.
Being able to, like you said, rest and deploy the Parawing and still be on foil, you're always still learning how to ride a foil, which I think is really important for any sport, like foiling discipline. Time on foil is something I look at always.
And then you can, like, it opens up new new feelings, right? Because you can ride a smaller board.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's smaller foil again, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought some interesting innovations to the Flow that I felt that were really helpful when I was riding, and I think one of them was the leading edge being a different color. When I was riding the BRM, I had it, in my hand, and it was really tough to understand like where it would be pointing when I redeployed. The color-coded lines. Like, did you bring all that from paragliding? Is that
Yeah,
like...
so that's standard for paragliding. To sell a paraglider has to be certified. It runs through a process, and the norm is you follow the European norm. So you get a stamp on your paraglider that's been certified by the European norm, meaning that the glider won't break in the air.
Yep,
and also, if eventually collapses, it will recover. It will reopen. And there's 5 different classes of paragliders, from beginners to more advanced, more performance-oriented designs. The beginner paragliders, it will reopen, will collapse and reopen without any pilot input. And to make it easy to see and to kind of handle the paraglider, everything's color coded. The lines, the front lines, what we call the A lines. I happen to have the that's the D-wing bar. So now we have the color coded bar as well, which is blue that points up to the sky, which I like that kind of concept. So in paragliding, we call it the front lines the A lines.
Yep.
The second row of lines, we call it the B, and if you had a third one, would be C. And the last ones, which is always in paragliding, most of the time it's always yellow, are the brake lines.
Right.
So A, B's, and brake lines. That's how we call it in the paragliding, and that's kind of how I kind of call it in a way. But when I'm talking to people who are not non-paragliders, I say like the front lines.
Yep.
And the brake lines. Most people understand the brake lines. Yeah, and the middle lines. Yeah.
So I think, I love that transfer of,
So it was because it makes it so much easier. You have more lines on a paraglider. Sometimes you have 4 rows of lines before you have the brakes, so you have 5 attachment points.
Wow.
And if every row is color coded, it makes so much easier to grab whatever you need to do, because for a paraglider to take off, to inflate, you pull the A lines, and it's kind of similar what you do when you're depowering it.
Nice.
You hold the A lines a bit more, and you're releasing proportionally the B's and the brake lines.
Yep. I love the terminology of things, because everything is so new, and I don't even know that when I'm talking about it, I'm using the right terminology. So can you dissect the Parawing for us and tell us what these things, what's how everything is named? Just like the leading edge, is that the leading edge? Is that how you call it?
Yeah. So I think the main thing to know on the D-wing, the leading edge is the white part of the canopy.
Yep.
And you have the trailing edge, which is the rear part of the canopy.
Yep.
And you have the wingtips. One of the things in paragliding that we pay a lot of attention to is those little plastic rods. And when we're trying to fold it away for extended periods of time, we're trying to concertina in a way where you're kind of not putting too much excessive bend on those things. So we're trying to kind of concertina. See, I'm trying to put them all together like that.
Nice.
And I try to keep this section, so the rods they're probably like a palm, 20 centimeters long. And when I fold it, so when they are folded again, they are kept.
Nice. Okay.
In a way, they are kind of preserved. You don't bend them. Yeah, so that's kind of how I try to keep it.
Nice. I have to redo a video. I put a video out telling people how to pack the Parawing that I will need to update after this chat, because that helps a lot understand what areas of the Parawing you need to just be a little bit delicate with. But when you're putting it on a belt, dude, I don't think about that. I just stuff it in there.
Yeah, that's okay. Because you only But if you're packing away, because that area it's especially important because it's the leading edge. That's the area that there's a separation between the air goes to the top and the bottom surface, and the plastic rods are there just to help keeping the airfoil loyal to the design.
Gotcha.
So if you don't pay too much attention, if it's permanently bent, it might change the flight characteristics of your D-wing.
Yeah, gotcha. Interesting.
And you might lose a little bit of the reflex. I don't know. So it's good to pay attention. It might look simple, but it's a very sophisticated kind of design. And it's an airfoil. It's like in paragliding, it's a little mini aircraft.
Yeah.
I think that's the only part of the Parawing that you should pay attention to. The other thing that also very important, it's not to store your Parawing when it's wet, or it's still like, damp or something. Because there's two enemies to the ripstop. It's the UV lights and moisture. So if you leave it, let it dry before you store it away.
Yeah, I leave mine I just hang. It's cool because if you just put your bar upside down and just like stash it somewhere, it actually stays in a little bit of a position that it just dries itself overnight.
Live in the garage, someone connected up high, and next morning it's all dry.
Yeah, good tips. And you guys just recently launched a couple of new sizes. I saw a post recently. What's the size range? What's the range of the D-Wings now?
So we realized that there was the feedback we received, there was a bit of a gap between the 3 and the 5.2. So then we just released the 3.7. And we realized here that there was many instances that we overpowered on the 3.0, so we needed a smaller size. So we've not released the 2.5. But looks like we might even need a size smaller.
I think
maybe 2.0 or 1.9 or 1.8, something like that. So so that's a smaller size.
So 2.5, 3, 3.7, 4.2, 5.5.
5.5,
yeah, cool.
Yeah,
I think the 3.7 will be my go-to here in Melbourne. I think in that 20 knot range, it would be such a good Parawing.
I think so too. Yeah. And what I've realized as well over time is that's what I will be trying to do. It's rather than going, if I have a choice to pick up a bigger board and a smaller Parawing, that's what I do, rather than a bigger Parawing and my current board. If I have two boards, the board that I normally use, it's a 610 by 100 liters, and that covers most of the range. But if I have a proper downwind boarder, like 8 foot long, I can go with a smaller Parawing and a bigger foil. And I think that's the kind of a better take in Parawing, I feel, rather than...
I think look, I like both. I like the feeling of having a small board, but the feeling of riding a small Parawing is so much fun. It just turns easy, and you can do a lot of bring a lot of the kite movements into it, and it just responds a little bit better. I had a session the other day, and I was what was it? It was around 18-20 knots, and I could have gone small board for 2 meter Parawing, but I decided to go with the downwind board and the 3 meter, and that worked. Yeah, because and a slightly bigger foil as well, so I could pop out. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. There's a If the wing's solid, then there's no problem. You can use a small wing. I feel that if it's struggling with wind, then
Yeah, and
Then
it's
it's better
over
to use
time.
the bigger wing you have.
Yeah, it didn't. That was not how I started. I'm just trying to explore now as well, like what's the feeling like? Because I think every sport you go, yeah, okay, let's go smallest foil, smallest board, and then you start coming back up and you find a medium. And I'm thinking about what my next board will be, and it will be a Parawinging board. And I'm thinking about those dimensions, and it's just curious to see where it's going to go. But I think one thing that I get asked a lot, Felipe, is what is the wind range of these sizes? And I think it's kind of an impossible question to answer properly, because there's different rider weights and conditions and all of that stuff. The foils that people are riding and everything. But if you were to give an indication for people that are looking to get a D-wing, what are the wind range for the sizes that you have?
Yeah, okay. So if you think that, like, the ocean starts to white capping when it's around 40 knots. Mm-hmm. If it's a couple knots stronger than that, like 16 knots, I can get up and going on a 4.2. Mm-hmm. So if between 16 and 18 knots, at 4.2, it's probably my go-to, just because it's more reliable and I can get up.
How much do you weigh?
85 kilos.
Yeah, that's very important as well. The weight
on a 610 board. Yeah, and I like let's say a Code 980 S foil.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I normally use. And if I feel that it's a bit stronger, it's 20 plus, then the 3.0. But if you see that, like sometimes if I see, the wind is it's to drop and it's 16 knots, 16, 18 knots, and the forecast is for wind to decrease, or I'm after work, I have an hour before sunset, a couple hours before sunset, I take the 5.5.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Because I want to get a session in. Yeah. Even if I'm overpowered, and I still have fun on the 5.5.
Yeah, you can depower them.
I can depower. Usually on the 5.5, I collapse it and I hold it on my hands rather than trying to put it away somewhere.
Yeah.
I just hold the 5.5 on my hands. Because usually if I'm using the 5.5, it's shorter downwind runs.
Mm-hmm. I actually go out. I take another Parawing with me these days. If I know that conditions will change, they're so small. I literally have one in the belt, and then one riding that I hold when I depower. And if I need to change, and that's normally between the 4.2 and the 3. Right. So it'd be cool to get that 3.7 now. God, I have to buy another one. Oh my God! All right, just give us some more problems to think about.
Yeah, that's
and I've been riding with the guys in Torquay as well, and we noticed that there's a very big difference in rider weight. So one of the boys down there, Adam Snow, he's riding normally one size up from what I'm riding. So if I'm 80 kilos, he's over 90, 95. I'm not quite sure how much he weighs.
Yeah.
What's that difference like? Is it every 10 kilos you would go up a size or something like that?
Oh yeah, it's a hard one to say, because it comes to the equipment you're riding. Mm-hmm. And the type of board, but also your skill. We noticed that some of the local guys here, the better skills you developed. If you get a little bit of speed, you can start pumping your board and having the same kind of motion you have when you're pedaling up. And then if you're pumping the Parawing with that motion, and you have a big foil, and you can get away with much smaller foils, because as soon as you start having that speed, you're creating more apparent wind on the canopy, and then you get more power off the wing as well, and then it's a combination of both. It's technique as well.
It is.
So, yeah.
But your Parawings are one of the only ones that accept the pump. Well, like pumping your Parawing works. I don't know what happens in it, that it always goes back quicker to, how do I say this? It actually, you regain the tension on the lines quicker to then do another pump.
Yeah.
And I find hard pumping any other Parawing, and yours, I could just yank them and they pump.
Yeah.
What's the secret?
I think it's due to the fact
Tell us the secret.
The reflex, we call it reflex, but it's the tendency of the wing to stay inflated constantly. So if you think the D wing is a call it it's an airfoil. So if you throw up in the air, it will fly like as a parachute or a paraglider or as a plane. But the way it's designed, it won't fly in a straight line like that. It won't just glide. It will try to do this. It will try to fly up and then stall and regain energy and fly and regain speed and energy and then fly up again. So that's when you're pumping, the leading edge is always trying to stay up, fly up, fly up, fly up.
Nice.
It doesn't have the tendency to fly down.
That's game changer, man, because I feel like it's so much easier to get up when pumping, and when I pump is when I push down on the foil on the board, and when I go up and when the board's going up, I try to stay very light on the board, and that's when the Parawing is going out, and then it regains that tension quickly, and I'm able to pump going down. Yeah. That's how I pump. And people say, "Oh, you can't pump on the Parawing." I'm like, you definitely can.
That's right. You can, yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, will get into parawinging now, coming from winging. I think it's a very natural evolution, and a lot of wingers, I mean, winging has been around for a while, and I think people are getting a little stagnant. Like if you're not throwing a backflip, you're kind of doing all the tricks, your tacks, your turns, and then what else? So for people that are coming from winging, is like a 4-meter hand wing the same power as a 4-meter parawing?
I think as a rule of thumb, I think that's a good analogy to start from. That's what I feel like. If I'm using my 4.2, some of the guys are using either 4.2s or 5.5s wings, wing foils in the water.
Because I feel the Parawing has a little less power than a hand wing.
To start with, isn't it? To get up on foil. A little less, I feel. But once you're up and riding, it feels like you have more. Yeah. You get overpowered quicker.
It is. Yeah. The wind range is definitely something that I think in the evolution now of the design, that's I think where there's a lot of gains to be had, increasing that wind range a little bit where we can actually enjoy it within like a 10-50 knot range, which is a big ask, I know, but I feel now the wind range is very narrow.
Yeah. So if you see, for example, a cargo plane or a normal commercial plane, the cargo plane would have a very thick wings to carry that extra weight to get up in the air earlier. And if you compare a wing foil to a Parawing, that leading edge, inflatable leading edge, is this wide, it's big, right? And a Parawing is a very thin airfoil. I think once our designers start to explore with the thicknesses of airfoils, maybe we can have this kind of the same efficiency to get up on foil. Yeah.
And one of the questions
we need to do is make it thicker airfoil similar to a wing foil. I think for its size, a wing foil is extremely efficient to get up on foil. If you compare like to kites, like if people are using a 10-meter kites, I'm using a 4.2 wing foil.
Is that just because of the way it flies, like the surface, like? Yeah, I have like it. Is the surface area then of a hand wing the same surface area of a Parawing? It is.
Yeah. Okay, that's the real size of.
You were talking about some terms on your website. So the flat area is if you put the Parawing down on the floor, straighten out. That's the flat area of the wing. Projected AR. Maybe to touch on that because that's I think where we might have dropped off.
So that's projected. I think that the easiest way to explain is if you're flying a kite and there's a midday sun and you see that shadow on the ground being projected on your wing. That's the area. That varies a lot depending how much arc you have. Some canopies have a very flat arc. Some canopies have a very curved arc. So a more curved arc will give you less area. And for some designers, that's the real area. That's the area that matters. Is the projected.
Gotcha. Because that's the area that the wind will actually affect the most, right? The areas that are just
Yeah.
straight into the wind, it's not going to actually produce that much power.
Yeah, the projected areas, yeah, what most people, most designers believe, that's what it matters. Yeah.
And then you have flat wingspan.
That's the wingspan. So it's from wingtip to wingtip. Yeah.
And the last one that to me is interesting, I'm not quite sure what it means, is the glider weights.
It's the weight of the canopy.
Okay, so just the weight of the Parawing.
So for paragliders, that matters when you kind of trying to decide what wing to buy to fit in the weight range, because it's all about the weight range. You have different sizes. It's not about the wing strength. It's about the wing loading, because you want to fly a glider that's suited for your weight, and you take in consideration the weight of the canopy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
nice.
for us, kind of, I put it there so people have an idea how much it weighs, because you like for your case, and if you want to get up with a second Parawing, you kind of expect how much you're going to carry of extra weight. Yeah.
Plus the water that it gathers once you're getting out there.
Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of improvements in the gear, and I know that there's a lot of things that will improve in the coming years. What is one point that you feel that the Parawings are still a little bit behind, like where you want to improve
I think what I wanted to work with, I like the concept. I like how the wing flies, how it depowers, how it can point upwind, and but I find it sometimes to get up on foil, I wanted to have a bit more consistent pull, more grunt on that phase, the initial phase, similar to a wing foil.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that would make it easier.
But sometimes you lose balance, especially if you're in the ocean and it's gusty, and you don't have the reassurance that you're falling behind and you can put your back up. It's it's lacking a bit of grunt.
That pendulum where, when you have a wing, you obviously always have that stable pendulum to lean on. Yeah, and I think yours already is one of probably the easiest ones to learn on, because you can, lean on it and be a little bit aggressive with it, and maybe not even that, let's say not careful too much of what you're doing with it, and it will just stay there. But it's still hard, because I think a lot of beginners, they don't come from kiting, they don't come from winging, so maybe they're prone surfers or downwinders, and they will have a steeper learning curve when compared to a kite surfer and a winger.
Yeah, there's a guy here who wings with us. He's coming from a four drive background.
Interesting.
Right, and he never kite foiled, never kite surfing, never wing foiled. The only interaction with foiling he had was with four drive, and he's Parawinging now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick to see people coming.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's good. And he's stoked. He's so happy.
I bet you would be. Especially with all the foil drive set up and cleaning up, and
it's a foil drive is good, but I think it's much lighter when you're up on foil, when you can stash it away and have no power coming from nowhere apart from the energy in the ocean, and you just tap it into that, and I think that's when it's that's the most appealing feel. That's when you kind of hooked, when you experience that for the first time. That feeling of riding the endless wave.
You want to chase that for sure. Yeah. The for people that are getting into parawinging and they buy a Flow and they're like, all right, what do I do with it? What are some good land drills for people to practice on land and understand how it flies?
I think so. Yeah. I think fly on the land first. And one of the and how, like, you understand how you turns and how you can depower if it's gusty, how you can take the power away, how you can stash it. Like, there's a lot of techniques. I see people pulling on the front lines, the red lines, that like that. on the D wing, we have a very strong leading edge. It's very hard to collapse, and I find that might not be the best solution to stash it away. To collapse it, I find it better to stall. This is the technique that I've been using, and I find it works really well. So I'm flying like that. I'm usually holding near the front lines. The front lines are always the red ones, almost, because then it's easier to depower it. And then I point my board downwind. I took the power from the wing. It's very easy to then stall. We call it stall when you stall the wing. So the wing loses flight, and then I go from the bottom here, and then I gather all my lines, and I have the wing on my hands. And I find it very reliable to kind of deploy it again like that. And I'm holding here, and then I just go up in the air. Even sometimes if it reflates facing the other way, it's very easy to turn to the correct way. And
the Parawing wants to fly in the right direction. And I spoke with Steve Tobis this morning. He's been riding the Parawings for quite a while now, and was one of the first guys to start riding in Maui with in September. And when I redeploy, I tend not to like throw it and like want it to go and fly exactly where I want it to go. I kind of just drop. And he said the same thing, just drop it, and if there is a twist, it'll start untwisting itself. Yep. And then you see like the leading edge coming through, and then you just, you can pop it around. But instead of wanting to flow and getting that power straight away, both of us felt that just letting it drop, riding downwind, letting it undo any, twists on the line, if there is anything like that, helped us get, much more reliable redeploys.
Yeah, I think I quick glance on the lines to make sure that the red lines are pointing up.
Yep.
Now with the blue bit, it's much easier to glance it, because sometimes you packed it away and you grab the bar, and then it's a quick little glance. I think it's really easy. If it's pointing like that, it's wrong, and then you quickly correct. Yeah.
And again, I'm sending some people from the Parawinging group on Facebook some love now, because they're also asking, what are some safety precautions that we have to have with the Parawings? Like one of the guys asked, he's a kiter, and there's always the fear of getting your fingers tangled in the lines, and like, is that a possibility that people could get hurt with this, or what's your safety precautions with it? I just be aware of the lines, right? I think that because it's not a rigid leading edge, I think the risk of the Parawing to have like this shock reinflation, like a kite does when it falls out of the sky and catches there and it reinflates again. And if you're trying to kind of grab the kite lines, it's not the same with the Parawing. Once the Parawing is in the water, unless you force it to capture the air with the white leading edge, you won't reinflate. I've never had a case like that. And if you keep yourself aware, not too much tangled up on the lines, I think the risks of getting your lines twisted like that and the thing reinflating are less than on a kite. And do you and I think that's, I mean, we can't say it's never going to happen, but I think as a safety precaution, never like wrap your hands on the line like that. That's just common sense, but it's worth mentioning. We never wrap our hands to pull something. If you're pulling something, I normally don't pull the lines. If I'm relaunching from the water, I go to the leading edge and I grab it in my hand and let the water drain a little bit, and then I throw it up and launch it that way.
You have to be more careful when you're flying the 3 meter wings when it's 30 knots. It's a bit more crazy. And then I think the risks of I try not to manage the lines. I try to hold the bar more often. If you have a tangle and the Parawing is in the water, then the risk of spontaneous reinflation are less as long as you keep the bar like that. Like if it's in the water and you're holding the bar at the tail end of the bar, it won't reinflate. It's pretty safe. So if you hold it here and there's a gust, that can be a case of reinflation. yeah, if you keep those two things in mind, yeah.
And what are your views on Parawing leashes? I personally don't think it's
No.
necessary, but people sometimes feel like they need to have a leash on their Parawing. What are your views on
That's
that?
we when we first started, I always went out with a leash, but it only
Hmm.
lasted me a couple sessions, and I realized that you don't need it because if you have a crash, the power wing it sticks to the water. It won't
Mm.
get blown away by the wind. It stays there a meter away from you. There's no need for leash.
Is it and look, I've experienced moments in the surf where, a wave would come by and then the parawing's in the water, and that's just a factor of the conditions, not that the parawing sinks like a rock. But if you are riding in waves and a wave collects the parawing, it'll just be underwater like a sheet, like a bed sheet.
Yeah.
It just stays there. It doesn't float back up, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, this the bar won't sink. It's very light. It's a bit of air
Mm,
in there. Will float. So the bar and yeah, won't sink. Yeah.
nice. Well, that's good to know that at least the bar will be visible on water,
Yeah,
because if the
I
parawing's
think
like,
over if you leave it there for 10 minutes or something, maybe it will take water. But I think it will
mm,
float. Yeah. We never had a
yeah.
bar sinking. We never had a
Hmm.
Parawing sinking. But we never know. It can happen,
Dylan
yeah.
from kiting Puerto Rico, he lost a parawing, and I want to talk to him to see how that happened, because everybody says, yeah, you could just let it go and it'll stick to the water, but he lost the parawing, but I'm not sure if that was in the surf or what happened. And I'm going to
Yeah.
clarify that
Yeah.
and
Wow.
and
Yeah, yeah.
do a post or something. We're going to chat soon as well, so we may just talk about what happened in that incident, because we don't want to be losing our parawings out
No,
there.
no, for sure not. I think yeah, I think on lighter winds, but if you're using the 5.5 and a 4.2, it's pretty safe. It's a pretty
Oh
safe
yeah.
thing. It's actually a safety thing to have. It's
Mm.
yeah. I think the risks of you getting tangled on the lines or getting your lines wrapped around the lines are very minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, and I when we talk about safety and we're doing downwinders, and sometimes, big downwinders over 20 Ks, and we always try to go out with our vests and, our personal location beacons and all that stuff, cell phones, but having a parawing that is colorful, that is like the color pops, like all your parawings have very bright colors.
Hmm.
Was that a safety feature,
Yeah,
or was that some?
that was intentional. We wanna
Yeah.
we the early prototypes we made, we used blue.
Hmm.
And blue, you kind of, if you're far away, you can't see it, right? If you're out
Yeah.
in the ocean. So we always wanted to use colors that are used they're bright
Hmm.
and easy to see. Yeah, yeah. Red,
No, that's good,
orange,
man.
yellow. Now
Yeah.
we're using, for the new sizes, we're using the lime green color, which is also, it
Hmm.
pops in the ocean. Yeah. And yeah, the white leading edge with these other color combinations, I think it really makes it stands out. So it's if something happens, something breaks, you lose a foil. I think people will find you easy in the middle of the ocean if in case
Yeah.
if you need a rescue.
If
But
No, dude, I
hopefully,
think
yeah,
it's underestimated. But even from the shore, like, if it was very hard to spot the BRMs out there, just because they're a white canvas, and people say, I never know where you are. But now the color coding is cool, and the other thing, it's cool that people look at whoever's out there and they know what size people are riding as well, which I think is personally cool, from just, someone who's getting into the water. I'm like, all right,
yeah.
someone such and such is on a 3 meter, cool, I know what I'm going to be riding. So I personally like those features as well.
So I think like while we are where we are now at this stage, we have a product that we are comfortable and the reviews are good, and we are just trying to make it better. So we are just working on prototypes. We had a prototype recently that we wanted to extend the top end of the wing range.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we're just exploring some certain areas just to see where it leads. Just
Oh, dude, I'm
yeah.
super excited. I'm super excited. What do you think Parawinging will? How is it going to grow in 2025? What's your expectation for this
I think
year?
we're just scratching the surface there. I think I'm keen to explore the double surface Parawings as well. You know, it'll be interesting if we are already pointing that much upwind, and we are, you know, having you be able to go upwind and tack and go downwind. I think with the double surface Parawings,
Yeah.
will be more efficient. Maybe it will be a similar grunt, you know, that the one I was talking about to get up on foil. There might be some compromises there. It'll be not as easy to stow and put it away. But yeah, that could be the thing that will challenge the status quo of wing foiling. In the same way, wing foiling is challenging the status quo of kiteboarding, right?
Yeah, it's
really
gained so much popularity.
It's really amazing to see like history repeating itself, because I've been through that process of where I was a windsurfer and I saw kite surfing come about, and then stealing all the people from windsurfing, you know, everyone. And now it's the same thing. It's happening again. You know, I see on my local beach. You know, 5 years ago it was full of kite surfers on the Sudleys. Now there's no more kite surfers, only wing foilers.
Yeah.
And so last weekend on our little beach here, there was 5 Parawings. Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting popular here, man. Everybody, like in my crew, they all were very excited, and they got one, and they're all having success with it and progressing, and it's cool to see.
Yeah.
And I feel you could ride a little bit closer as well when you're doing a downwinder with a Parawing.
Yeah.
You stick together more than with the paddle. It's so much fun, man.
Yeah, I think that people like, you know, like they are curious, they wanted to explore new things. Those are the ones they want to try. But there will be people who are happy either just kiteboarding or wing foiling, and they will stay there. And that's normal. That's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the curious ones, there's going to be always something new for them to explore.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Look, Felipe, I know this is it's been a long chat already. Is there anything else that you feel we haven't touched that you want to bring up, or we're good? How are you? Is there anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I see that there's a lot of racing happening in wing foiling, right? Yep. And if you see what's happening with kiteboarding races, it started off first with the tube kites, the traditional people racing those things in, you know, and now the foil kites are way more efficient, and if you combine with foils, they're more efficient again. You can't challenge the traditional kite surfing kind of shapes, and I think maybe that's the future for wing foiling racing is
going and using a Parawing.
A double surface Parawing. It's going to be more efficient. The shape is going to be more efficient.
You think? All right. Who was it? I think it was Boz that said they were using the Parawing and racing guys on kites, and he was doing like 50K an hour.
Yeah. I think it's not even this sport is just not even a year old, is it?
Well, I think when do you consider that it started? I mean, personally for me, I'm putting a landmark when the Malika was launched, which was September, or just maybe before September, like August or something. I got mine in September, and I was one of the first ones in the first batch. So I think around that time. So we're not, maybe 6-8 months in.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to acknowledge my admiration for Greg, having a go and creating something new. I like his approach. He has a very unique way of designing things. He's strutless kites. He's not following the norm. He's trying something new. It's great to see. I have a strong admiration for him as a designer. Yeah,
dude. And I think, look, everybody as well has a strong admiration for you for taking what's out there and trying to put your own little touch on it. And the D-Wing was something that changed my Parawinging journey significantly. So
thank you
very much for all your just love for the industry, love for pursuing new things, creativity, passion. That's exactly what we need. People that have an idea, have a passion, and go out there and actually do it. So you're one of those guys, man.
That's it. Keep it young. Keep it fresh.
Nice. Thanks for the chat, Felipe. Hope we can keep in touch, man, and maybe get you back a little bit further in the year when things will be completely different and have another chat.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.